Hello and welcome to Dressmaking, Amore. I'm so pleased to present to you this elegant, softly pleated, high-waisted yoke skirt. I've been wanting to make a pleated skirt for some time now, but with something just a little bit different about it. So this Annette skirt has a beautifully smooth high-waisted yoke, long straight pleats from the hips down, and it's held with an invisible zipper closure at the side. It has all the minimal and clean lines for the perfect, elegantly modern skirt. Of course, we'll be using my Annette skirt PDF sewing pattern, so to follow along, get yours at the link below in the description. Here are the materials you'll need. And please refer to your instructional booklet that comes with your pattern to choose your right size and print and assemble the pattern perfectly, as well as follow the cutting instructions. And of course, all the steps for the whole sewing process of this skirt are in there. I'll be using this gorgeous pale pink matte satin fabric, which doesn't wrinkle too much and will hold the pleats of the design perfectly. Cutting out the pattern pieces of the main and lining fabric, make sure to snip the notches on the back yoke piece number 2 and the back facing so that you know for sure where the back is. The pattern pieces we have here are the front and back skirt, the front and back yokes, and the skirt front and back lining. Okay, let's get to sewing. Now before we actually get into sewing, first we want to fully interface one piece of the front yoke and one piece of the back yoke from the wrong side. This will be our facing yoke, the inside layer of the skirt. Then with strips of interfacing that are 3 cm or 1.25 inches wide, interface the other front and back yokes along one side for the stabilization of the closure. You can also optionally interface the waistline seam allowances to prevent it from stretching. Note the notches on the waistline that indicate the back. Moving on to our skirt. Serge all the vertical edges of the skirt pieces and then press away the waviness. But if your waviness doesn't go away, that means you may need to re-sew it after adjusting the thread tension of your serging. If you skip this, your side seam will be gathered and it won't look as nice as it can. Place the 2 pieces of the skirt right sides together and pin only the right side seam, making sure that the marks for the pleats are on the same side, and sew with seam allowances 1.2 cm or 1/2 inch. Then place piece 1 and 2 of the yokes right sides together like this, and then pin the side seams on opposite sides since they need to be mirrored. On both, the front is on top and the back piece is underneath. As you can see, the notches that mark the back, they're on this bottom piece. And now sew. We can press the side seams of the skirt open using a wooden tailor's clapper to cool it down. And do the same for the side seams of the yoke. Now we're going to form our pleats of the skirt. Starting at the side seam mark, take the mark that's next to the side seam and bring it towards the 3rd mark to the side. Form a pleat, pinning at both sides of the pleat. And if you do the first one correctly, like this, the rest is easy to repeat. You want to make sure to leave room for sewing the zipper, and then to hold these pleats, we need to place a stay stitch here. Take the pins out just when you reach them for accuracy. Now here where we will have our closure, take an 8 cm strip of interfacing that's 2 cm wide, and then interface the rest of the zipper closure seam allowances of the skirt at the side next to the pleats, from the wrong side of the fabric. And do this at both ends. This will be the prep for sewing our zipper. Now place the yoke, the one that's not interfaced, bottom edge and pleated edge of the skirt right sides together, and pin matching the side seam and the center marks. Starting from one end, do a backstitch and sew using our previous seam as a guideline, making sure our edges match and sew all the way down. Press the seam allowances towards the yoke without pressing the actual pleats. And then repeat from the right side. Working on our closure here, I decided to go with this beige zipper. Measure down about 21 cm or around 8 inches and make a mark on the right side of both edges of your skirt side. Place the zipper on top of the skirt right sides together, unzip, and then pin the zipper tape to the edge of the fabric. We're going to sew to our mark, and my seam allowances here are equal to the width of the zipper tape. Change to an invisible zipper machine foot and sew the zipper down. Here we can also clip the corners of the seam allowances at an angle. Now close the zipper, transfer the marks to the yoke line and the start and end of the seam to the unsewn side of the zipper tape. Open the zipper and pin the other side of the zipper tape to the other edge of the skirt, matching the marks of the yoke, start and end. And then we can sew. Once we're done, turn to the right side and check if everything is even. Then flip it back to the wrong side and close the zipper so that we can fold it together and pin it. Then pinning the seam allowances together at the end of the zipper seam. And after, pin the rest of the side seam to the end. Change the machine foot to a one-sided one or a narrow foot like I have here to sew close to the previous seam. Sew the seam starting from the end of the zipper seam just for a little while, about 2 to 2.5 centimeters or an inch. And then we can change to a regular machine foot and sew towards the end of the side seam of the skirt. Check if the end of the hem is lying flat without puckering. And if you like how it looks, we can press the side seam open. Like so. Here we have our perfect closure. For our lining, first serge the vertical edges and then sew one side seam right sides together fully. Then sew the other side seam, leaving 10 centimeters unsewn at the top. After pressing the side seam open like this, we'll place a 4 to 5 long gathering stitch at the top edge of the skirt. Pin the bottom edge of the yoke facing, the completely interfaced yoke, to the lining, right sides together matching the side seam and centers. Gather the lining slightly to match the yoke edge, like this, and now we can sew. After sewing the lining to the yoke, press the seam allowances down towards the lining. Turn the lining to the wrong side and place the skirt inside of the lining so that our yoke will be right sides together with the main skirt. You can clip the seam allowances at an angle, and now we'll pin the top edges of the yoke matching the side seams and center marks. Try to pin exactly into the side seams for a perfect match. And at the ends, you want to fold the seam allowance at the corners towards the facing, flipping over the zipper to that side. Now we can sew all around. Flip to the right side and check if the corners are even. And then clip the seam allowance corners at an angle for easier folding. Then understitch, starting with a backstitch about 2 centimeters from the side seam, turning the seam allowances towards the facing, and then stop about 5 centimeters or 2 inches from the seam at the other end. Trim the waistline seam allowances in half, leaving about 4 millimeters all around. Pin the edges of the yoke matching the yoke seam and sew using a one-sided or narrow machine foot. Check your work and in the same way sew the other side. From the right side, press the waistline for a beautifully smooth finish. Now we want to pin together the side seam of the yoke and facing, matching exactly at the seam. And now sewing from the right side, place a stitch into the side seam ditch, joining the yokes. Take the pins out of your way just in time for accuracy, stopping right before the edge and backstitching. For our finishing steps, for the lining hem, I'll simply double fold the hemline by 5 millimeters towards the wrong side and sew. You can serge and sew as well, simply by your preference and your fabric type. Serge the edge of the main skirt and press, and then fold the serged edge towards the wrong side and sew in the middle. And of course, giving your garment a finishing press like always, we are done with our elegant Annette skirt. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this inspires you to sew this lovely piece yourself. I know you'll love it. You can get the PDF downloadable sewing pattern that I used below at the link in the description of this video, and happy sewing!